There is a place in the world where the past never died. It was carefully preserved, catalogued, sealed, protected by doors that almost no one is allowed to pass through. Beneath the soil of the smallest independent nation on earth lies a labyrinth invisible to those network of silent corridors, of Vatican reinforced chambers, and underground vaults stretching for kilometers, safeguarding not just documents, but decisions that shape the destiny of humanity. There are records of kings who vanished without a trace, confessions extracted under torture, secret treaties that redrew borders, letters written in moments of absolute desperation, accounts of wars declared holy, and stories that were never meant for public eyes. This is the Vatican Apostolic Archive, known for centuries as the Vatican Secret Archive. The word secret did not originally mean hidden or forbidden. It comes from the Latin secretum, meaning personal, private, belonging to the Pope. But over time, the term acquired a far more unsettling tone, because the more tightly a place is sealed, the more questions it invites. Officially, the archive is the largest continuous historical repository on Earth. More than 80 kilometers of underground shelving, millions of documents, centuries of correspondence between popes, emperors, and rulers, administrative records, trials, diplomatic reports, treaties, and decrees, fragile papers that survived fires, invasions, world wars, and the collapse of entire empires. But the true scale of this place cannot be measured only in meters. It must be measured in impact. Because virtually every major decision of the Catholic Church, one of the most influential institutions in human history, passed through these rooms. Inside are the trial records of Galileo Galilei, the scientist condemned for declaring that Earth was not the center of the universe. For centuries, the Church portrayed this episode as an isolated mistake. Yet the full proceedings reveal something far more complex: fear, politics, and the threat of losing control over humanity's understanding of the cosmos. There are also personal letters from artists like Michelangelo describing tensions with religious authorities while he painted the Sistine Chapel, a work now celebrated as divine, but at the time surrounded by disputes and intense pressure. Correspondence between popes and monarchs reveals that faith often walked hand in hand with geopolitics. Spiritual decisions were also strategic ones. A dramatic example involves England's Henry VIII. When he asked the Pope to annul his marriage, he sought more than a new union. He wanted to secure the royal succession. The papal refusal triggered a rupture that led to the creation of the Anglican Church, an event that permanently altered Europe's religious balance. All of this is documented in meticulous detail, but not every record stored there is widely known. One of the most disturbing episodes preserved in the archive concerns the Knights Templar, the military order that amassed enormous wealth and power during the Crusades. In the 14th century, they were accused of heresy, idolatry, and secret rituals. Their leaders were arrested, tortured, and executed. For centuries, it was believed the Church had formally condemned the Templars. But in 2001, researchers discovered an almost forgotten document inside the archive, the Chinon Parchment. In it, Pope Clement V secretly absolved the Templars of heresy. Even absolved, they were destroyed. The document suggests the fall of the order may have been driven more by political and financial interests than by religion. This raises a deeply unsettling question. How many accepted historical narratives were shaped by decisions made behind closed doors? And how many alternative versions still lie hidden in boxes no one has opened for centuries? Among the millions of pages are also texts considered apocryphal, ancient writings excluded from the official Bible. Gospels describing different accounts of Jesus' life, early Christian communities with diverse beliefs, and theological interpretations that could challenge traditional understandings of Christianity. The Church has always argued these texts were excluded due to doctrinal inconsistency. But for many scholars, they represent a far more complex and diverse picture of the religion's origins. There are also reports from diplomatic missions to distant lands, descriptions of peoples unknown to medieval Europe, and records of phenomena considered inexplicable at the time. Some documents describe visions, celestial signs, and natural events interpreted as divine intervention. Others detail epidemics, social collapse, and disasters that seem to echo modern crises. Yet perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the archive is not any single document. It is access. For centuries, almost no one could enter. Even today, only qualified and approved researchers may consult a small portion of the material. They must request specific documents in advance and receive only exactly what they asked for. There is no free exploration, no wandering among the shelves, no complete view of the collection. Photography is restricted, certain documents remain classified, and entire sections are still inaccessible. Officially, this is for preservation and organization, but the side effect is inevitable: mystery. In 2019, the Vatican partially opened archives related to the pontificate of Pius V during World War II, a period surrounded by controversy over the Church's role regarding the Nazi regime and the Holocaust. Historians from around the world rushed to examine the material. Even so, it was estimated that decades each folder may contain letters, reports, and decisions capable of redefining entire interpretations of the 20th century. Imagine a single place capable of rewriting history books simply by revealing new details. A place where the past remains alive, waiting for someone to read it, yet protected in such a way that it may never be fully understood. Perhaps the Vatican Archive does not conceal proof of global conspiracies, lost civilizations, or impossible technologies. Perhaps its greatest secret is simply accumulated knowledge, because information is power, and whoever controls the records of the past influences how the present is understood, and how the future will be shaped. But there is something even more disturbing: the silence. No institution preserves 1,000 years of documents without containing uncomfortable pages, morally ambiguous decisions, and stories that do not fit heroic narratives. The archive is not merely a repository of faith. It is a mirror of humanity, with its greatness and its shadows. Perhaps some of these stories were not hidden to manipulate the world. Perhaps they were preserved because they are too difficult to confront, because some truths do not bring comfort, they bring responsibility. And while those boxes remain closed, the world will continue imagining what might be inside. Not necessarily because something supernatural is there, but because the unknown always amplifies our fears and our expectations. Perhaps the true mystery of the Vatican Archive is not what it protects, but the question it forces us to ask: if you had access to the entire history of humanity, what would you discover about us? And more importantly, would we be ready to know? Because some doors are not kept closed only for security. They remain closed because once opened, they can never be closed again. If you want to step through these invisible doors, explore the forgotten mysteries of history, and uncover the stories that never made it into the books, subscribe to The Hidden, because far more is buried in the past than we were ever taught to believe. And this is only the beginning.